Hello and welcome to the latest episode of The Talking Tradesman. With me in the studio today, I have Tommy Cordery. Have I said that right? Fantastic. Tommy's come in to talk about a subject that I haven't actually covered yet, which is great because it's a subject that I definitely did want to cover. Namely, we're going to discuss gambling and gambling addiction. So, Tommy, massive thanks for giving up your time, mate, and coming in.
You're very welcome.
Tommy reached out to me initially on TikTok, which is not a platform that I'm particularly present on. So another thank you for that, man. Thank you massively for giving up your time. And let's talk.
Yes, mate, I'm very excited, dude. So I'm very grateful to be here as well.
Mate, honestly, it's I've said this a few times over now. The podcast would be nothing if it wasn't for the guests. I'd be sat in an empty room talking to myself. It's I'm just really grateful that everybody that has wanted to get involved in this project has done, yourself included. So let's get on to you. Tell us a little bit about sort of like who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into the depths of what you're here to talk about.
Okay, wicked. So I originally I work in the construction trade, so I am a groundworker. That's what I've done for the past 10 years.
Wicked. It's hard graft, mate.
Hard work, yeah.
It is hard. It's one of the hard
work.
ones.
It's the cold days during the winter. We don't stop. I think that's something a lot of people don't understand about the groundwork kind of people. It's that we work through everything: rain, sleet, snow.
In terms of groundwork, so we talking like footings, concrete, what
footings, concreting, back end, front end, finishing, slabbing,
tarmacking,
block paving, tarmacking. Done a lot of tarmacking. I originally, the first couple of years was in private work, driveways, those kind of things. Done a lot of resin work. I know you had a guest who done the resin floors on the inside kind of commercial buildings.
Oh, the gaff flow.
That's
Lou.
Yeah. I enjoyed watching that podcast.
Yeah, he's done. Big shout out to Lou. Yeah. He's done all like clubs in Ibiza and all sorts. That's
really good. So we do the same for driveways.
Becoming a big thing, mate. That is
really big thing. It's progressively getting bigger and bigger as well. And
so
again,
that's just like resin mixed in with stone.
So it's resin bound mixed with gravel. So you've got the colour variations are a really big thing with it because you can have everything literally blended in. There's so many different colours blended in with others. You can have light greys, you can have buffs, you can have so many different kinds of colours blended together.
Why is it so popular now? What are the benefits? I'm not going to go too deep into resin. Genuine interest here because I've seen that more and more people are doing it.
The benefits is permeable, so water runs pretty much straight through it.
Okay.
So as long as you've got a permeable sub base, it can.
I don't know why I thought, because when I think resin, I think of like, I've got a table over there with some resin in, but it's like solid.
Yeah. It's I couldn't get into that part, if I'm honest. I don't know the ins and outs that much, but if you do look online, you will see videos where they get big buckets full of water, and they'll just pour it on. So it is permeable. It definitely can be permeable. But the benefits more so are it's long wearing, so it does last a long time. Again, provided it's done properly. It's quite a complex process. I think a lot of people think, "Oh, we'll jump on it," but it can go wrong really easily. It's something that has to be done like a particular way. I think if some of the mixes aren't done correctly and consistently, you get blemishes in colours. So you can start doing it, and say you leave it in the mixer for a minute too long or something along them lines, it can end up then coming. You put your next one out, you look at it and you think, oh, that's a bit lighter or a bit darker. So consistency is a big part of it. We found that out through trial and error. I have been on a course for it myself, which was, again, really good insight into doing.
Fair play. They look mint when I've seen them done. They always look really clean and
I think that's the part I really like about it is the finish. It's the finished look. It looks,
up and coming, man. Well,
patios are the patios and the pathways are a big thing with them as well at the minute.
I can imagine. Yeah, makes sense. Up and coming modern technologies, I guess.
It can blend really well with the borders as well. So you can have a block border with some really nice granite blocks, and then it'll pop well with that.
Resin's really becoming a big thing in like multi-use, isn't it? Because it used to just be like furniture and things, but yeah, I mean the
like you're saying about like your table, it's used in various different trades. But yeah, no, it's I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as well. I enjoyed the process because it's all trial finish. You can have power floats as well.
Okay.
So if you're doing big areas and big drives, you've either got to have 5 or 6 people on the hands and knees trialing, or you can get a power float that kind of covers the area a lot easier. But no, I personally enjoyed doing the resin work.
Fair play, mate. Yeah, it's, as I say, the groundworking industry is not. It's not one of the easy trades. I wouldn't fancy that. I mean, personally, in my business, I've actually stopped doing exterior work wherever possible. I say that. I think I've landed myself in doing one this year. But for the last 4 or 5 years, I've completely stopped doing the externals. So I just find the British weather's far too unpredictable.
It is very unpredictable. Same thing goes. If we was to, as ground workers, open up the app on your phone for the weather, if we was to look at that, we wouldn't be in. We'd be lucky if we've got a day's work.
Yeah.
Because you look at it and think, well, I don't want to work through that or that. But then you get out there, you get going, you get doing it. Okay, if it rains, it rains. We've got waterproof gear. You get wet. Once you're wet, you're wet. You know, it can be.
It's hard.
It is hard, and it can have a bit of an impact on your health as well. Obviously, you know, cold weather's wet, soaking wet, getting into a dry area, drying up, and then. All right, lads, back out to it. So it can have its ups and downs, but everything does, mate. You know, there's pros and cons to every part of a trade. To be fair, mate.
True story. Well, let's delve into obviously why you reached out to me in terms of your experience, and honestly, genuinely, it is a subject that I've wanted to cover. Yeah. So I'm really grateful that you're here to do that.
In our first conversation was the main point that you said. Oh wow, well. I'd love to have you on because it's not something that has been spoken about much.
And it's a big issue. Again, issue, mate, I think within the industry, same sort of thing. I mean, listen, I grew up, so I grew up in a pub, basically.
Well, you're about to meet your match because I grew up in a pub.
There we go.
This is where it all started, so we'll get into that.
The amount of times where I would stand there between the ages of like 8 and 10 and watch lads... Because, I mean, we're talking when cash was a lot more prevalent. Yeah. This will probably resonate with a few listening. Yeah. But that would go to the pub to get paid because their gaffer would meet them in the pub, who would stand there with a roll of notes, dishing them out. And then you could stand there and watch some of the lads get paid and put the whole lot into the bandit.
Yep.
The whole lot.
Yep.
And then, you know, within an hour of getting paid, they're going around asking for somebody to lend them a tenner, lend me 20 quid just so they can get a pint.
Well, and also maybe try and get the money back that they put in it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I saw it firsthand, mate. And again, the construction industry, I think I don't know whether years ago it was more because people were trying to get a bit extra for the weekend. I think maybe now it's a little bit more because people have got a little bit more spare cash and they don't know what to do with it, so they'll gamble it, and then that, as you all know, spirals. But listen, we're here to talk about you and your journey. Yes. So where, as you can probably guess, Tommy's been through a gambling addiction and recovery. Yep. So we're going to talk all about that.
Yep.
Where did this all start?
So it would, so through my recovery and through my therapy, during my rehabilitation centre, we touched on those issues. I'd never really thought about it much till I'd entered into therapy. But, you know, during that process, you reflect on things during your own life and then you realise, oh, actually, yeah, that may have been where it began. And for me, as you just said, my mum was a landlord for a lot of my childhood. So we lived above the pubs, literally right above. And she used to give me pocket money. Well, not pocket money, but money to be able to go, you know, at break and get something from the tuck shop or wherever it'd be. So it'd only be a couple of quid. But at night times, I used to spend a lot of the time downstairs in the pub with my family. I've got, you know, a younger brother and older sister. So we'd spend a lot of time in the pub. But I'd also always be watching people on the bandits. I always had a fascination with it.
let's pause a moment to thank our headline sponsors, Zinza, and let's talk about their product, Zinza Bin. Zinza Bin is a shellac-based formula and it sticks to any surface without the need for sanding. It dries in 15 minutes and can be recoated in 45. Zinza Bin blocks stains, knots, sap streaks and odours, including water stains, oil stains, mould, nicotine, pen and more. It really is a fantastic product. Let's get back to the episode.
The lights, everything's from a young age, and spending so much time in there. So what I used to do, probably about 10 to 12, 13, she'd give me my pocket money, and in the morning while she's getting everybody else ready, I'd nip down into the pub, turn the fruit machines on, and I'd use my £3 or whatever it was, bit of change that I'd get. And quite often I'd go to school with like a tenner.
Really?
Yeah, so that
was the beginning.
That was, again, until I'd gone through the therapy process, and they ask about certain things, and they say, and I spoke about mum being a pub landlord, and then it dawned on me then through talking, through the therapy, that was a big part of it. Definitely was a big part of it.
I mean, to be honest, to delve into like the psychology of that, one, you're still young, so your brain is still evolving. And two, like those gambling machines, those bandits are literally designed to grab you. So like you said, the flashing lights, the noises would make.
I mean, the one thing that I remember a lot as well, especially from a young age, is you wouldn't even really be paying attention, but all of a sudden you'd win, and then they'd press the collect button. Just coins after coins after coins, and I'd be like,
I remember.
He felt to me like he won $1 million. Do you know what I mean?
Tommy, I remember exactly the same thing, mate. I stood in the bar that my dad used to drink in, and you'd hear that ka-chunk, 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 and then you'd be listening, be like, is that a little win or a big win? And the people, ka-chunk, ka-chunk, chunk, chunk, chunk. And I remember the jackpots in some of them, because I'd only have like little payout trays, and people would be there literally trying to catch the money as it falls out. But all of that, because it was always paid out in coins as well, wasn't it? Yeah. So it was like the dunk, dunk, dunk. It's all designed, isn't it, to hook you?
Yeah. They're parts of the things that draw you in. That again, if you aren't conscious about those things, your headspace isn't in the best of places, it can easily,
as a kid, mate, you're still maturing, and I would imagine doing that, you're getting that dopamine hit. You get used to that feeling of like the rush, the adrenaline rush, the win, the enjoyment from winning. I mean, back then, did your mom know that you were doing that?
Oh, she had no idea. No,
absolutely
no idea. But the good part is, again, doing this podcast, mum, she knows there isn't anything she doesn't know.
Yeah,
I went through my whole journey. She was my rock, and she was the only person that stood by me through the whole thing. She was a lot of the reason why I ended up going into recovery.
That's good.
But we'll touch on that as we go.
I'm glad you had that support, mate, for sure.
Yeah, I'm very grateful that I have had people. Support's a big part with recovery and therapy. Support network and having people. We test these people through recovery. A lot of people don't stand by. A lot of people don't. Well, and you can't blame them. You put these people who just want to love you and care for you. You put them through so much misery that it's hard for them to just stand by and watch the people they love self-destruct.
I think gambling's the difficult one with gambling is there's no physical. You can't look at somebody and go that they've got a gambling illness, because any addiction's an illness.
Definitely.
With other addictions, whether that's drugs or alcohol, you can normally look at somebody and go, I can see that suffering through that addiction, because there'll be a physical showing that they're suffering because they're abusing their body.
Yeah, same with the substances. Substance is kind of the addiction too. It's a substance that draws.
Let's be honest, Tommy. Like, you could look out on the street and be like,
"No idea."
Listen, I'm going to speak openly. There's a smackhead.
Yeah,
you could look
at somebody who's got a drug addiction.
You could literally look at people and be like, I can tell they have and there is. I think there's a degree of sympathy that will come with that.
A degree
with gambling, there's not that at all.
There's no show. There's no show tell. I mean, if I'm honest, for me, when I got to that point, though, you could tell. When I went in, they did. I'm not sure whether they even still do it now, but when I went in, I had a picture taken of me before I went,
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'll have to try it. I'm pretty sure I've still got him in my folder. And yeah, I was a frail, really, you could just see the whole life had been sucked out of me. I was skinny. I'd lost a lot of weight through the stress. Lost my hair over the years as well. So I think that was stress
of it.
Yeah, definitely. So you could see that I was in a place of desperation. I definitely didn't look like the man I am today, if that makes sense. You could tell that, yeah, I was in a desperate place. But you are right. It's not an addiction that is clearly visible. I think a lot of gamblers and a lot of people who are struggling with problem gambling sit in silence, and it's all just stuck in their head, constant roundabouts. I think that's why it's a big contributing factor to how much of a problem it is. The same stigmas that we have in construction, the same stigmas that we have in mental health is the same for them. How do I talk to somebody about this? How do I get all of this out? How do I admit the guilt? How do I admit the shame that I'm not in control and now I'm going to lose my car, lose my house, lose my wife, lose my well-being and everything that I care about because I can't stop doing this. You know, it's a very tough mental place to be as a problem gambler.
I can imagine, mate. We'll get onto the depths of it a bit further along, but if we pull back, so I mean, your first experience of gambling in the pubs.
Yep.
How did things progress from there? Like, what was the next?
So, I mean, I was a very popular lad at school.
Coming in with more money.
Yes. But also more, networking with friends and getting, I got into smoking weed from a young age, partying. We used to go and we'd go and get, I used to pinch my dad's alcohol out of his cupboard and fill it back up with water.
Well, I think we've all done that.
Haven't we all? Yeah.
Done that. A lot of us have done that one.
And like, again, I never realised how much these things along the stepping stones and ways of my addictions and my problems, they were all contributing factors. So yeah, that was one thing that escalated things from probably 13 up to 18 maybe years of age. So
were you still gambling along the way?
Not really, to be fair. Not really. No. I wouldn't say that it was more those then issues then turned into real life ones as I got older. So I left school, didn't really pay attention in school. So much oozed potential. So growing up as well with my dad and my mum and dad were separated from a very young age. So I spent half the time with my dad and half the time with my mum.
Okay.
So Mondays, Wednesdays, and then whoever's weekend it was would have the Friday and the weekend.
What did your dad do out of interest?
My dad ran a central heating company.
Oh, okay. So in the trades, yeah.
In the trades, yes. Funnily enough, my brother's now a plumber.
Right.
Because he got so into kind of that kind of stuff that he went and started doing plumbing work, and then he left that industry, started doing working with cars, and then realised that his passion is that. So he's now got his own company doing his own plumbing thing, and he's doing really, really well. He's also got a TikTok where he puts all his work up on there.
Do you know what, mate? Before we go too much further, I'll ask you. I'll always ask anyway. But obviously, like I said before, I first came across Tommy on TikTok. Just let people know where to find you.
Yes, you can find me on TikTok at Tommy TWC. I do Mental Health Monday lives from 7:30. I'm now 6 weeks into it, and it's becoming something that's very, very, very rewarding for myself.
Yeah.
I've got so many people that are getting involved. I have guests on. I think last week's I've done, because I just kind of delved straight into it with the mental health on TikTok, that I had so many people reaching out to me. So I had guests on. It was kind of a similar kind of podcast setting. And I had guests coming in and people asking me, and me reaching out to people to say, would you like to come and speak about your recovery? I've had, funnily enough, not had anybody on about gambling yet. It's been more along the lines of recovery. I've had grief. I've had anxiety, people who've struggled with these kind of things who want to...
I love that, mate. I love that. I mean, massive credit to you.
Talk out and speak. I think one thing that's most important for me is giving people a safe place. TikTok can be a very dark place, full of a lot of negativity. But I've found that you can, with the right people behind the camera, the right, ideas and the right things, it's become a very, I want it to be a very safe place where people can come and speak openly. I've got moderators in there that the minute anybody's negative or comes in there, you just muted and removed straight away. There isn't time for any of that. We're all here trying to network to help better each other, speak about the issues that are at hand.
Mate, it's again, huge credit to you for doing it. It's people like yourself that the industry and just people in general, like society in general, need more of out there.
Well, personally as well, before we carry on, I want to thank you, because all of this has happened since reaching out to you to come on this podcast.
Mate, that's amazing. So
it's from watching your podcast. It's from you gave me the motivation to realize, I'm 10 years in recovery. 10 years is a long time. And I spent so many years doing wrong and behaving in the wrong way and treating people the wrong way, that this is my opportunity to be able to give something back.
There's such value. You've been through dark times. You've been through shit. What I love about this whole situation is the value to that. So, and I've spoken about it before, the value in trauma. You can take that trauma, you can become victim to it, you can regret it. But if you can take it, harness it, and use your experience
use it to something good,
to help others, there's huge value to that. And there's nobody better placed than a man like you to talk about that particular issue. That has walked every inch of that path.
That's something that I do touch on my lives and I mention it quite often. I am in no way a professional at this. I am just somebody who has been through the ringer with it, experienced it firsthand, and just have genuine kind of want to just help maybe just one person not have to go through the same thing that I went through. Or if you are, I can point you in the right direction, I can give you advice, and I can help.
In many ways, though, Tommy, actually, that does make you an expert. I suppose. Because you've been there, you've done it, you've walked the path. I'm the same. I've had various people that have referred to me in the past as like a mental health expert, and I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not. I'm an advocate.
Yes.
I'm here trying to spread awareness. I'm not an expert. But then also, I've put myself in a position where I've done a lot of learning, a lot of education, and had a lot of these conversations where actually I'll learn from you today. I'll pick bits up, and then potentially I'm then in a position that if somebody comes across my path, that I can either then refer them to you, or B, actually give them something that I've learned. So
knowledge is power.
At the end of the day, mate, how do you become an expert in anything?
By learning.
There you go. Which is exactly what we're doing. So,
and I think something as well that I found along the journey is that you can never learn enough. You need to be learning something new every single day. See, the only way progression works. You've got to be able to have that in your head and not think, oh, well, I know everything about this, and be a know-it-all. I used to be one. I used to think I did. But through recovery, it humbled me to realise, you know what? No, I'm far from that, and there's so much that I can improve, not just within myself, with kind of what I'm doing now in other people's lives.
I love it, mate. So if you're on TikTok, go and give Tommy a follow. I'll put Tommy's details below the episode description thing. Scroll down, he'll be there. Go give him a follow.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate it.
Getting back into the conversation, mate. So we're about 18 now. You said, you've become the popular kid, you've left school. What did you go from?
So funny enough, my first, I bounced around jobs left, right and centre. Again, that was probably the start of my addictions were there. So still smoking weed all the time. I started working at Fitness First as a receptionist. It's the only job during till I started in the trades after my recovery, after leaving the Gordon Moody Association. Before then, I think that was the longest I'd ever had, and that was a year. Every other time was Tesco's, bouncing from anywhere that would employ me from job to job. Again, I got myself in trouble in so many different jobs as well, because I'd be feeding, I'd be doing things to feed my addictions. I'd be stealing. So again, I didn't learn my lesson when it come to weed till quite recently, because I had this idea that weed wasn't part of my gambling problem. Okay, it wasn't, because I only quit smoking weed just before Christmas. But that was due to a whole separate thing that we can touch on if you like. That was due to it made me ill. I ended up with something called cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome.
I've never heard of that, mate.
Neither had I, mate. Neither had I, until the doctors come and told me that you've been to hospital 4 times this year and had to be put on a drip because I can't stop being sick for 2 days. And then asked me, said, like, do you smoke? And the time that I went the last time, it was when norovirus was rife just before Christmas. And they actually tested me to see whether it was some sort of sickness. They'd looked in my history, seen that I'd been in 3 times last year for the same thing. That's when he mentioned it, and he said, do you smoke cannabis? I said, yeah, I have done from a very young age, quite high. I was spending sometimes half my wages on it, and wondering why I wasn't getting anywhere in life. I think
so we're talking, like, time period wise, how many years are we talking?
Since the age of 14.
And mate, I don't want to ask these questions, but how old are you now?
37.
37. So you're talking a good over 20 years worth of smoking weed. Are we talking daily?
Oh, yeah. Daily, probably from 16, 17 daily, apart from being in the rehabilitation centre for a year. Every other time of my life I spent smoking weed. It become just a normality for me, especially over the last probably 6 years, 7 years. It become very heavy, smoking high amounts, big amounts in each joint, to the point of where I think that's what, if you do your research and have a look up, by all means go and have a look up on Google and what cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome is, because again, I had no idea myself. It was only when he come out and told me, he said, look, I think this is what it is. I Googled it, and I'm looking at all the symptoms of how all of these things are exactly what's happened to me over the last year. That made me take a real big step back and think, do you know what? Again, putting my gambling addiction to one side completely. I've got kids, man. I've got 3 beautiful kids, and I'm 37 years of age, and my health is really important to me. I want to be around to see these kids grow up. I want to be a part of their lives. If I keep on doing this, I keep on going at this rate, I'm not going to be. Not that it was going to kill me, but it's going to have a detrimental effect on my health and my well-being, let alone my mental state.
What, that syndrome that you mentioned, like, what causes it? Is it just overuse of
overuse? Weed? So long-term use and high dosage can cause it. Again, it doesn't happen to everybody, but it did to me, because I was thinking to myself, well, how the hell Snoop Dogg not got it? You know what I mean? Like, but everyone's got, it's their own thing, isn't it? And it was a big wake-up call. And again, coming from that to this has all been, since Christmas this year. And the ability for me, since I've been on it, I wish I'd have done it years ago.
Well, fair play to you for knocking it on the head, mate. It's a big thing. I mean, I'm quite open-minded when it comes to the use of things like that. But as with anything, if you're reliant on it or you're doing it daily, it becomes an addiction and a problem. Yeah, and you could apply that to anything. Yeah. You could apply that to food. You could apply that to smoking. You can apply that to vaping. You can apply that to any particular action. Yeah. Even it sounds even like going to the gym. That can become an addiction.
Yeah, especially if it's going to end up being detrimental to your health.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
So, I mean, by the sounds of it, it was an addiction to weed on top of.
And like I said, I always kind of thought, because I stopped smoking during my time in the treatment centre for the rehabilitation centre for my gambling addiction. So I during the time as well, I'd always put they're separate. That doesn't affect the gambling is the issue. Smoking weed just kind of like helps deal with the stress of it. It isn't part of the problem. Which I suppose is true. I wasn't a gambling addict because I smoked weed. That wasn't the case.
It was just a parallel, I guess, parallel addiction.
Yes. Yeah. And it was, some people might not like this, but it was so much easier to be able to come off cannabis than it was gambling.
I'm not surprised.
So much easier. And I wish genuinely I'd have done something more about it way before. It shouldn't have had to got. This is me just being again open, because this is an open place and I want to be open. It shouldn't have got to a doctor telling me this. I should, especially with what I've been through with my gambling, I should have had enough to realise, you know what, this is overtaking my life. But again, you know, like 10 years is a long time. And life's tough, man. You know, through those 10 years, it hasn't been perfectly easy and it hasn't been perfectly plain sailing. I haven't relapsed and gone back to gambling, no. But I've still had stresses and strains in my life. I've still had, had children, had stresses and pressures of providing, being there for them. I've got one son in a different city who was here before. I went into the rehabilitation centre.
I can resonate on that, mate. My daughter lives 200 miles away. My son lives with me. So, yeah, there's a lot. Listen, being a parent, life ain't easy. Life is fucking difficult. Being a parent is not easy.
Yep.
It comes with a lot of stresses and strains, and it's hard to... You get into a pattern of that crutch, don't you?
Yes.
I've had a shit day. I've had a stressful day. A lot of people will pick up a bottle. You'd pick up a joint.
Yep.
And it's easily done. I've been hyper vigilant of that with myself because of my childhood and upbringing and being raised around a drinker. I've always been very, very observant of myself because I know I could quite easily fall into that pattern.
Yeah, I think the term as well is, you know, everything in moderation.
Exactly that. Yeah.
You know, I like to use this. I've used this a few times in my own lives. Is you got a headache, 2 paracetamols will take it away. Take the whole box, it'll be your last headache.
Yeah,
and it's the same thing.
100%.
Anything in moderation can be good for you, it can help you. But you know, I'm not going to sit here and say don't do this and don't do that. You know, because that'd make me a hypocrite, and I don't want to be one.
Tommy, another good example, mate, is you can actually kill yourself by drinking too much water.
You can
do that. So, speaking of water, actually, I'll normally give you. Do you want a water?
I would love one.
Yeah,
mate. I will have one.
Mate.
No worries, man.
You always do that. Don't drink too much of it, Tom.
Yeah, I'll try my best, mate.
There you go, mate. My hospitality is...
Thank you, bro. Oh, don't be silly.
We're back in with waters. Just not too much of it.
No, yeah.
But that's exactly right, mate. It's everything in moderation, isn't it?
Definitely, mate. I think that's a key part of the misunderstanding I had growing up, if that makes sense. You know, I was very addictive personality, you know, and if I put my all into it, you best believe I'm going all out. You know,
I think, to be honest with you, mate, that's and I've spoken to a few people that have that same trait. It can be a superpower if you can harness it and focus it in a positive direction.
Definitely.
It can also be an absolute kryptonite if you don't.
If it's not. Yeah,
so
definitely.
It's but that at least you know now. You recognise that you have that in your personality, so you can then adjust to accommodate it and use it to your benefit rather than your detriment.
That's it.
So
I think that's the big part of it, and that's again something that I only learnt through recovering through therapy. I had no idea of it, to be fair. But yeah, I don't want to do your job, but we'll go back to
mate, absolutely. So
we'll go back to we can go off
tangent
topic.
Is always good. What we got to do, you imagine a road with a lot of branches. That's what we got to do. But I love taking the turns, mate. It's fine, but we'll always come back and try and keep it chronological and then move forwards from there. But exploring those little nuances, long word for a Saturday, is part of what I enjoy doing.
Yes.
I think we've scripted. If you script a podcast too much, my own personal opinion,
I agree.
It doesn't allow for that. There
those,
can be, topics that you want to explore.
When conversations flow as well, something I like about the lives that, again, you can start on one thing, but then there's so much involved in that one thing. It's hard to just keep it so focused on
100%, mate. I mean, listen, you've come in to talk about gambling, and we're talking about weed.
There you go.
There you go. But yeah, mate, let's pull it back then. Let's pull it back.
Yes.
So you touched on the fact that you'd bounced around jobs. You'd got to a point where you were getting to, like stealing to fund the addiction. I guess we're talking the weed addiction at this point.
Yes.
So where did things progress from there?
So again, a lot of things for me were people in the environments I was around.
Massive factor.
So I had I've got a younger brother who's 2 years younger than me, and then I've got a sister who's 2 years older than me. So during that whole time of school, I was in a constant kind of. I was more popular with my sister's friends because they were older, so I was around older influences. But then at the same time, had the younger friends of my brother. So all of these friendship circles that were around, we all knew each other. There was a large amount of different people, and like my addiction got me to a point of where I was bouncing around all of them. I'd treat most of them like crap at some point, whether it be, oh, lend me this. I mean, my brother, he'd got to the point in our relationship during my addiction where he just turned around to me and said, listen, Tom, I can't fucking be your brother no more, mate, because the amount of stress that you'd get from people because I'd just abuse any relationship in that way. He'd have people ringing him, where's your brother? He owes me this, he owes me that. You know what I'm saying? He'd have drug dealers who also were friends or, you know, hounding him down, like to the point of where, again, it's becoming a seriously stressful thing for him. And he ain't doing fucking nothing wrong. He's just trying to live his life. I'm his older brother. I should have been setting the example. Whereas, like, the way our relationship's been, and I've had this conversation with him plenty of times since. He's one of my biggest supporters now. But it's been the other way around. He's kind of learnt from my mistakes and never made any of them. But it shouldn't have happened that way. I suppose it happens in any way it does, but he's been the inspiration now for me. I look at him and I see him running his own plumbing business, dealing with all of his things. He has, again, same things, you know, same mental health problems like we all do. He suffers with anxiety. You know, he's got dyslexia and learning difficulties, but yeah, he's running a business and he's doing amazingly well at it. So he's an inspiration to me, you know, now. But growing up, it was not that way. It was not that way. When I should have been the older brother, he was the one who got a lot of the brunt of it. A lot of family members did as well. I think this is a big thing for addiction. I don't think people understand how much it affects the people close by us. Obviously, yes, it's us causing the trauma. It's us putting a lot of things on ourselves. It's us behaving in these manners, but ultimately they affect them. And when you're in that, you know, lane of addiction and gambling and drugs and alcohol, and you don't really think about how much it affects these people, but it does massively. And that's, again, something that helped me take responsibility for my actions when going into therapy, because I think that's a big part of it too. You've got to take accountability. Accountability is a big thing, you know, with addiction it is, because you've got to be able to stand there and say, do you know what, I'm wrong and my behaviours are wrong. I don't like how I'm behaving. I don't like what I'm doing, and I want to change it. And I think until that happens, it's hard. It's hard for anybody to change. You've got to want to change.
Well, I want to talk about that whole process of the therapy, the recovery, and all of that. I want to get into that, and obviously we'll talk about the Gordon Moody Foundation as well, and everything involved with that. What I want to touch on before that is sort of like how bad it got, how it manifested itself, the things, and it's not. I don't want to do this from a glorification or like a sort of like shock value thing, but I think it's important to put out there the things that it can cause, the positions it put you in, because that's the reality of it.
100%.
And some of those more shocking elements of where that addiction can take you are actually some of the things that there might be somebody listening to this that's like, if you imagine a 10-stage process, you got stage 10. They might be at stage 1 or 2, and not really, you know,
aware.
Exactly. And just to caveat everything that we're saying, I won't go into his story because it's a friend of mine and it's his story to tell. But I have had a very close friend who went through severe gambling addiction, and it took him to some very, very dark places. So I've seen it firsthand. I've seen how bad it can get. So I've got a little bit of understanding, on how, and I've seen firsthand people in that stage of the real pits of it. So if you're okay with it, we'll get into your experience of that.
Definitely. So all of that kind of started to come just after. So my son was born. In fact, no, probably it'd have been a few years before that. So I went into the rehabilitation centre in 2015.
Okay. Yeah, so 10 years ago.
And I'd say from 2010 up to 2015 were the worst 5 years of.
So we're early 20s, are we talking?
Yes,
20s,
yes, early 20s. I think, I was 24, 23 when I went in. Would that be right? No?
37, 27, 10 years. So you'd have gone in at 27.
27 I was, yes. 27 when I went in. So it'd been from 22 to that 5 years was the worst 5 years.
How was that? Like, man, what were you gambling on for a start? Like, what sort of gambling was it?
That's the point that we need to get into more. Everything. So a lot of my time during that period, because of how bad my addictions become, I couldn't hold down a job. So I ended up just being on benefits. And this is something that I know we've spoke about, and a big part of what I wanted to let people understand is that gambling addictions can affect anybody. It doesn't matter whether you've got 100 grand in the bank or 100 quid. I was on benefits for the last 3-4 years till I went to recovery. And I spent every single benefit payment on gambling. So like I was saying, those things that we was talking about growing up, the pressures and strains with paying drug dealers back. I was growing weed. I had it stolen from me. So at the point where my son was born in 2013, and he was only a baby at this point, but I'd had him in one room and his cot and everything like that, and I had to grow in the other. So it wasn't anything massive, but I always thought to me, well, this is my way out. This is my opportunity to, pay off my debts, get myself into a position, and then I'll sort myself out. But as life has it, it doesn't always work out like that. Your thoughts don't work out in that way. And one day I had about 2:00 in the morning, I had the door kicked in. I come running down the stairs, and 4 lads balaclavaed up with a Rambo knife and put it straight to my neck and said, "Look, we know what you're doing here. Where's the weed? Where's the weed?" So I just literally said, "Look, I've got an 8-month-old baby upstairs. He's fast asleep. Take whatever you want. Please just don't touch him. Leave him alone." And thankfully they did. They took everything. They wiped my whole flat out. They took my PlayStation, Xbox, whatever it was at the time, TV. All the crap. They took the whole lot. I was just so glad they didn't even go in that room.
Could have gone a lot worse.
Could have got a lot worse. And that should have been the start reminder there to, what, Tom?
And obviously,
you need to change your.
What actually happened there, Tommy? Like, because somebody's obviously stitched you up there to a degree.
Yeah. So again, this is where I was talking about environment. So whether it was people who stitched me up, or I know a lot of people in the area where I live, they have the runners who they cycle around with infrared guns. So they only have to point it at a certain place and know that why is that room cold but that room's lit up like a Christmas tree? It's pretty easy to figure that out. I weren't sure. I'd had a few things told to me that it was people, because again, loose lips sink ships, which is very true, because I was very much that way. I always had people coming around and chilling and playing PlayStation and smoking. Do you know what I mean?
Out of interest, mate, when that happened to you, where was your head at in terms of, did you want revenge? Did you let it go?
I let it go. I wasn't interested in revenge one bit. No, because of the progressiveness of how it added to the paranoia, it added to my addictions, because then again, it just made the whole thing worse in my own head. The guilt I felt for putting my son in harm's way like that. It was a time in my life where really, really, really wasn't pleased with myself. And all that did was just, hype up the problems from there.
Were you putting gambling above your own well-being, like in terms of like eating and things like that?
Pretty much from that point, yeah, it started to get worse then. So obviously, like I said, I was on job seekers, but I'd have my son. So what I'd end up doing is I'd get my job seekers put into my bank account. Again, at the times, I don't even think I had it. Sometimes I had a post office account, and I'd go and take it all out cash, and I'd just go straight to the bookmakers. So a lot of my gambling problem was in bookmakers on the FOTBs. So
sorry, what's that?
So the FOTBs they're going to get me here because I'm going to struggle to remember what the initial term is. I can't remember.
What sort of gambling was it?
Betting terminals. So
okay, I don't know a lot about it, mate. That's why I'm coming
when you go into a bookmakers, obviously you've got your TVs for the dogs and the football and the horse racing and everything like that, and then you'll have they're kind of like bandits, but the big screens.
Okay,
the modern bandits you see now in pubs with the big screens for the slots and roulette. Roulette was the one for me.
I've heard a few lads. I'll be honest, mate. From my side, I think the last time I went in a bookies, I was very infrequent, but I was maybe in my early 20s, which wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
Probably in my early 20s to bet on like a Sunday game of football or something. I've very little experience being in a bookies, so that's why I don't really know what a lot of this stuff is.
I spent so much time in them. When I did. Yeah. So much time in them. To the point of where that was part of the addiction was just being in there. Oh yeah, you get a free drink, you get a coffee, and people in there to conversate with.
It ain't a free drink though, Tommy, is it? That's the thing. Well, it's a very expensive drink.
Very expensive drink in hindsight. Yeah, definitely is very expensive. But that's the way that I'd look at it as well. Yeah. You in that mindset, anything free you take.
Out of interest, mate, because I know a lot of it is like social interaction as well. When you're in that position, you're in those establishments, you're surrounded by people in a similar position.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, you really are. You don't. I think sometimes you don't realise it, but I think if you can take the odd moment of reflection, you look around and you think, well, he's just got back in his pocket, bang, 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 back in the machines, and you're like, this is the thing about the gambling addictions as well, is that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're very, very well. I knew exactly what I was doing.
Could you ever walk away?
No.
I mean, even short term, like say you're in there, because what just went through my head was there's got to be a high point to keep you going back to chase that high point.
So I think one thing I'd like to point on, and the one thing that really got me into getting into that kind of gambling, was I used to do door-to-door fundraising. So for charities, so like the British Red Cross. I mean, it was a pyramid scheme kind of thing. We'd go in suits and it's commission-based. You'd go knock on 100 doors, sign people up to charities. If they stayed for 3 months, you'd get paid this and that. And once doing that, I one day had a couple of pounds in change in my pocket. And I walked past the bookies and I thought, I'll have a little, I'll have a little go. I've only got a couple of quid. I'm not going to lose anything massive. Because I've always been that kind of way. Like I'm saying, any pub I went into, we had a pint, with friends, or I'd always be chucking whatever change I've got.
Put in change in the bandit.
Yeah. Every time. Without even, to the point of where lads would say, like, fucking hell, you do that everywhere we go. Like, I was like, it's only a bit of change. Like, it's nothing major. But yeah, like one day I went in and I put £1 in one of these terminals, playing, what was it now? Poker. So it was, so you have all different hands come up, and I wouldn't even, this is how crazy it was. I didn't even know what I was doing. Genuinely, I had no idea. And I just knew that all the same suits are a good thing. So I held 2 of them or 3 of them and spun it again, and it come out royal flush, and I won 500 quid, £500 off £1. And it was that realization, again, at a time where I was in a job where I could go knock on 100 doors a day and nobody say yes. I have just spent 6-7 hours walking around, my feet are hurting, I ain't earned a penny. So it
then
kind
instantly
of...
you've got like your week's
instantly
money.
I've got way more than my week's money. Yeah, and I'm like, that was easy. That was so easy.
Mm.
And that was one of the moments there that drew me in. I say I was about 20, 21 then.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing that drew me into thinking, actually, I could make money off this. And that was a process in my mind at the same time, is that I could do this. You know, I could make fucking hell, look how easy that was. Look how I didn't even know what I was doing. I just won 500 quid. And I think, like I'm saying, it goes as the years progress as well. It goes hand in hand with the other things and the traumas that are going on with your life. You don't recognise that that's not the answer and not the way that's going to provide you with a stable income.
When you were in it, in that addiction, and it had gripped you, if you had walked into a bookies and say had a win like that, what would you do? Would you walk out or would you put it all back in?
Put it all back in.
Until you had nothing?
Until I had nothing. The only times I ever left a bookmaker's during the last, like I'm saying, probably those last 4 years, is when I've got nothing left.
Really? So you just stay in there all day until it was gone?
All day till it's gone. Sometimes I could be £600, £700, £800 up.
You know, right.
Knowing I've got a son at home, knowing that I need to get him nappies, I need to get him, milk, I need to provide for him. I ain't got no shopping of my own. And this, like you just mentioned earlier on about my own well-being, I didn't give it. This is why my weight loss, I lost so much weight. I was a good weight, I was in the gym a lot. I was a good 13 stone, built pretty well. And yeah, because of those things, it really affected that. Affected that. I'd go home and I think times I'd just have to boil some pasta and eat it plain because it was all that I'd have in there. Do you know what I mean? And
so even though you'd be at a point where you'd got like 900 quid in your pocket, you'd still just stay there and put it back in. There'd never be the days where you'd go, I'm up today, I'm off.
No, not in those last couple of years, no. And that's when I got myself to the point that I'd got to. It was because of, I think that's a big factor, to be fair. Definitely a big factor. Because
what was it that held you there? I'm just trying to understand so we can articulate it to people. Because I'm thinking like 800, 900 quid up, you got your lad at home, you'd kind of smile on your face out the door. What was it that held you? Was it the feeling of the win that kept you, the addiction was? But what was it that kept you there?
That's a good question.
Did you just think, like, if I keep going, there'll be more and more?
I think a lot, yeah. I think that's a big part of it. But I also think because of how severe my other issues were, debts. Debts is I mean, you won't speak to any problem gambler that is debt free. Yeah. And I mean, I'd exhausted all kind of payday loans, anything along them lines, just to pay back debts. And a lot of it was it's that vicious circle of owing drug dealers, owing people, borrowing money. Yeah, don't worry. I promise you I'll pay you back. But because all of this was done in silence, nobody knew I was even going in bookmakers, really.
Really? So nobody knew that you had a gambling issue?
Nobody, and especially not really my family. My family knew, again, those last couple of years coming up, going into it. My mum probably was the only really one. My brother and sister knew a bit. They weren't really sure because, again, it was quite hand in hand with the weed and
so they thought it was more a drug.
They thought it was more, and just a general just you're an idiot kind of, you really aren't. You got no idea what I wanted to do with my life either. I think that was a big thing for me. Is I had no kind of like left school and this is what I want to do. No path, no desire to be this or that.
The one thing I'll point out, Tom, again, to people listening, like, you're clearly an intelligent bloke. So it's not, it's not that it was, because you just said they looked at you and thought, what an idiot. Yeah. You're not an idiot.
No, yeah.
So,
and I was raised well. That's another part, and I think for me as well with my addiction and going through the recovery part is that I realized I was raised well, and I am not this person. Like, I know what kind of person I want to be. This isn't who raised me. This isn't the way that my mum raised me. Because me and my dad had a bit of a salty relationship growing up after the teenage years. I left at 16 because of the way that I was being, stealing again. You know, stealing was a really big part of my problems.
When you say you were stealing, mate, in what context? Stealing from people you knew, or stealing from shops, or what sort of stealing are we talking?
Fully enough, mate, I'm never stealing from shops. Never. I've never been caught because I've never done it. Okay. I've always had the understanding. You see, this is where my addiction got me. It was the manipulation of people closest to me that I'd extort, and they're the people that I'd affected most. So there were friends. I've lost so many friends along the way because they used to invite me into the house, and you know, if I saw a bit of their mum's jewellery around or anything, I'd take it and go and pawn it. Oh yeah. It'd be because I know then. Oh well, then I can take that, turn that into 600 quid in the bookies, pay 400 back to my guy who I owe the money with for the weed and the drugs, and then I'm back then to nearly live. No matter what, I was just on that constant fight and battle of I'm always behind. So yeah, the stealing was really bad. I stole so much stuff over the years from people that I cared so much about, and the guilt was a big thing for me. Big part of during my recovery and during my rehabilitation that I had to deal with. It was that ate me up to a point, because again, like those last years before I went into recovery, into treatment, I'd got myself to a point of where I just didn't want to be here, mate. I genuinely had got so fed up with the life that I chose, so fed up of people chasing me, my family members, so fed up of stealing from people, making people question this and that. I'd done it to my grandparents, you know. My grandparents always helped me, and I took advantage of them. So many opportunities, every opportunity, to feed.
It's a beast, though, mate, isn't it? Yeah. It's an illness. It's a beast that had got its claws deep into you. Yeah. And again, I've seen it. I've seen it. And again, I've spoken to you a bit before this. I've spoken to you today. The vibe I get, you're a good person. Yeah, you're out there trying to help others and use your experience now to help others. And
talking about that I was still that same person then. Yeah, that was still in me. But that really genuinely was.
The addiction drove you to
do all of these things, and that's not me putting blame on it. I stand here and take full responsibility for all of the things that I've done. But because of the chaos, the absolute chaos in my life at that time, it got to a point of where, like, I'd just completely had enough. Of completely just fed up. I didn't want to wake up in the mornings. I didn't.
But this is, again, mate, it just highlights to me, and to put out to the people listening, is that the gambling addiction can take a good person, an intelligent person, and do that to them, and turn them into something that will ultimately destroy them and those around them, or destroy their relationships and connections with those around them.
Definitely. Because big part of being the relationships.
I would imagine, mate. I mean, it's very hard, particularly if they didn't know that you had that issue, to look at somebody who you love and care about and think, well, they've stolen from me. It's a very personal. It feels a very personal, like, attack on. It's that breach of trust, isn't it? That is then very hard to stand back and go, well, actually, that isn't Tommy. That's this thing that's got a hold of him.
And they didn't know anything. They didn't know anything about any of that.
Yeah,
they had no idea. So they just thought I was a thief.
Do they know now?
I was. Yeah. Every single person knows. Through my recovery and through, there's so many relationships I had to rebuild. So many relationships, and we'll touch on that when we come on the back end of it after the rehabilitation. But at this point now is when I was, again, I'd got myself to the situation and point where I didn't want to be here. And it was reflecting on people around me. They knew, they could tell. And one day I just thought, you know what, I've had enough. I don't want this anymore. I don't want this. And I went, I think I'd I think I'd even had quite a lot to drink. And I went and sat on the bridge in Totley, in a place called Totley, in Sheffield, where I'm from, very local to us. And I genuinely contemplated about just jumping. It was underneath from a railway tracks, and I thought, this would do it. Do you know what I'm saying? This would be. I wouldn't have to feel this pain anymore. It was the guilt. The guilt ate me up. That was what made me feel so worthless, so unimaginably not worthy of being here anymore. Like, nobody loves me, and I don't blame them. And then I thought about my son. Again, he was at that point, he was probably only 18 months old. And I thought, I can't do this to him. I can't do this to him. These are all my fucking problems. These are all my doings. And as horrible and as shit as it is right now, I can't leave him without a dad. So I got down. I was in hysterics. I was so worked up, so upset. My mum rang me, and she come down. She met me straight away, and she got in the car. And it was then that I was just really dead straight with her and said, "Look, Mum, I'm way over my head now. I'm too deep. I've been gambling like this for so long. Every penny I get, I can't control. It goes straight into there because I'm trying to do this and do that, pay this person back, figure this out, do this." And I just said, I can't keep doing this. And she said, well, I can't keep doing this either, Tom. I can't keep seeing you do this to yourself. I can't keep sitting by and not saying anything, and just because she was always there for me when I had nothing. So if I'd go and blow my whole lot in the bookies, and then my son would get dropped to my house, and I'm like, right, well, how am I going to feed him? I ain't got anything. There's nothing in the house, and I ain't got anything. I've blown it all. So I'd ring my mum and say, I haven't got any nappies. Or she wouldn't ask questions really, but she'd just turn up, and she'd make sure that he's got what he needed. She was always there to do that. And that's where, at that conversation that day, she said, right, Tom, you've got to do something to change your life. Here's your opportunity. And she handed me a phone, and she said, do something now. Do something now. Anything. She said, look up. So I Googled gambling, because obviously we just really had the conversation about the gambling more than anything.
Can I just say, mate, but before you do, sort of, we're going to go on with that, but thank you for sharing that, because it's a very deep, very personal moment for you. So, and it illustrates your turning point and how far it had got. Yeah. So really appreciate you being that open, mate.
That was my rock bottom. That was my rock bottom.
It was a question I was going to ask you, mate, was what was the breaking point?
Yeah.
And you've just illustrated that, mate.
That was it.
But I'm always massively thankful that people are open enough to share that, because again, it just illustrates the severity of it. And definitely. Fortunately, you stepped down, but there's many that don't.
There is many that don't. There's many people that don't make it through what I've been through, which is why I am partially the way I am today, and why I'm doing what I'm doing too.
Yeah, big thanks for that, though, mate. But I'm sorry to have interrupted.
Nah,
but I just wanted to make sure, because I could feel that we were gonna sort of go past it. Yeah. So appreciate that.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate that as well. So that conversation was the game changer with my mum. She handed me the phone. I Googled gambling addictions. First thing that popped up was the Gordon Moody Association. Straight on their website, in the car with her, and on the homepage it says, if you're suffering with gambling addiction, or got problem gambling, answer this questionnaire. It was 6 questions. I couldn't tell you. Again, 10 years is a long time ago. I couldn't remember exactly what some of them were. I think some of them along the lines of the severity of how much you're spending. Can you walk out? Like you said, how is it you couldn't just walk out? If you are gambling, can you stop at any point? These kind of questions to try and understand the severity of how bad it is.
Yeah.
From just 6 questions, they need to be quite, good questions. So I answered them, and I answered yes to all of them. So they took my number. They said, we'll give you a phone call to have a phone interview. And within 24 hours, literally the next morning, they rang me. And we had a chat over the phone again about where my life was, what situation I was in, my home situation, where I was living. Because a lot of the years through these things that were happening with my life, I'd left. My mum had kicked me out quite some time before. She'd even gone to the council to say, look, he's not welcome here. Because this was about 22 when the stealing and all of those kind of things got really bad. She said, he's not welcome in my house anymore. And the council got me a council house. I was quite lucky. So yeah, I kind of gone off topic a bit there.
No, you
so
did,
the speaking to Gordon Moody. So we had this phone call conversation over the phone, and literally said, "Look, we can help you, but it's not going to be easy. You're going to have to pack up your bags and come down to our treatment centre in Dudley." I was thinking, like, so, when's this going to be? Like, this isn't surely, this is going to be, I'm going to have to live this life again for months because, and they said, look, 4 days time, if you can be here, there's a space for you. So from that one conversation after coming down and that rock bottom bit to a search on Google to 24 hours later, a conversation to 4 days later, I was on a train from Sheffield down to Dudley with my bags packed.
So you literally, within 4 days, you've gone from that point of being on the bridge to being on your way to Dudley.
To being on my way to Dudley.
And listen, mate, what a fucking great... And it's not even an analogy, it's reality. What a great example of how your life can change, if you just take that step. I
think that's the biggest part about it. Again, like at that point and in them moments, I was so fed up of the life. And again, I knew I wasn't this person. I knew I wasn't. I knew. Again, this is because my mum used to reiterate it to me all the time. I haven't raised you to be like this. You aren't the kid that I raised. All of these things, even though they're in there, they're not coming out because my addictions overtook them all. But they were still there. And so that recovery process helped me find those things again.
Tell me about Gordon Moody, what it is, how it works, and all the rest of it.
So when I was there, obviously 10 years ago, things have changed a lot recently. We'll get into that because I just want to also let people know that since we started doing this, since I had this conversation with you, I got back in touch with Gordon Moody because I haven't been in touch with them for 9 years since I left the treatment centre after being there for 12 months. But I now do a lot of work with the Gordon Moody Association off just having the conversation with you. Because if you remember rightly, I said to you, well, let me, before I come on your podcast and speak about them and plug them, so to say, and say this or that, I just wanted to double check that they was okay with it. So I got in touch with them, and things have gone on from that. We'll touch on that in a minute, by all means. Where were we there?
I just said let's explain what it is, how it works, what
the process do. And how it works. So when I was there, it was a 3-month residential program. So you arrive there with your, the intention that you aren't leaving for 3 months. It's a 3-month residential program. You are there voluntarily. You're not locked in a how to put it, psych ward kind of place where all doors are locked. And
it's not like a locked rehab.
It's not like a locked rehab. No, they are just 4 normal houses. I mean, you'd walk past it and have no idea that it was a rehabilitation centre. You can go and open the door and walk out whenever you want. They have it that way. because you're here to change your life and they're there to help you do it. If you want to go. It ain't your time, And I think the big part for me was that I was just so desperate to change. I wanted to change my life so badly that I genuinely saw this as my one opportunity to do so. So I took the bull by the horn, so to say, and I didn't leave a single stone unturned, which I think is partially the reason why I'm still sat here 10 years later.
What was the process, mate? Like, what do they do for you there? How
so
does it work?
when you get there, you have a 2-week cooling period. So I spent literally 2 weeks where you don't do anything. So they take your phones off you. So there's no contact with family. So again, I knew leaving that I'm leaving behind a nearly 2-year-old baby with no contact. I knew this going down there, and they mentioned that there's no contact with family. You can speak, I think, maybe once on a weekend. You can just ring to let them know everything's going all right and that you're okay or what have you. But you weren't allowed your phones. You at all, not until towards the end of the treatment program. Once you're starting, they're starting to see that it's working, you could have contact a lot more regular. So yeah, you then get into, after the 2-week cooling period, that was just designed because, again, you come in there with such a chaotic mind. Your mind's all over the place. It's racing. You just took a big leap and turned up to a place that you've got no idea. It's not going to work the next day sticking you into a therapy group with 10 other people all talking about it. And it worked for me. And I thinking back now and speaking to people at Gordon Moody and other people and how the program is now, the program's completely different now. It's changed a lot. So yeah, at that time, that was massive for me because it genuinely did give me that ability to relax my mind, get used to my environment, where I am, settle in, and then really tackle the issues and the problems that I need to speak about and deal with in therapy. They use what is called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, through group and individual sessions. So it started off after that 2 weeks. You had a life kind of story. You'd sit down with a therapist, and we'd go through all your life, in a sense, kind of like what we've done here, the whole process. You speak about everything. There's always going to be little bits that you may miss, but later on, as you go through the program and you touch on other things and you're dealing with things that you forget about, because again, when you do the things that you do during those addictions, a lot of the things you block out mentally. Well, you don't want to remember them. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want to remember half the things I did, but they're the things that can get you later on if you don't deal with them, if you don't talk about them. And the way that they do it with the CBT, it's just, it's amazing. I can't sing the praises of how good cognitive behavioral therapy is, because I thought I was unhelpable. I genuinely did. I thought there's,
I think, to be honest, I know a little bit about CBT and therapy modalities and things like that, and I think it's particularly well tailored to gambling addictions,
definitely,
because it's so those addictions are so reactive and triggered. So with CBT, managing to change your triggers and mindset, it'd be really effective.
That's exactly it. So a lot of the therapy sessions, especially the group ones, you'd be speaking about coping mechanisms, changing your coping, because obviously before, coping mechanisms were non-existent. I didn't know what your coping
mechanism was gambling.
Exactly. Yeah. I suppose, yeah. So, you'd be learning new coping mechanisms, talking about them. Triggers, identifying triggers was a big thing, especially for gamblers, because again, you can't go, if anybody can tell me that you could go and watch a TV program and not see one for tombola, casinos, bingo. You can't watch a football game without it being all over it, adverts in between. Like, it is so pushed in your face,
particularly around sports, mate. If you're a bloke that loves sports, it's very much all over it.
Yeah, very. So yeah, identifying your understanding how they affect you, and being aware, because again, I wasn't aware of any of those kind of things. And yeah, it's funny because I come in here, I couldn't find it. I went to try and find my my actual therapy book. So obviously for the whole 3-month program, because it is a 3-month program, they give me the whole workbooklets of everything that we've gone through, everything we've written down, because they ask you to, they give you forms, not forms, but like workbooks, so to say, where you write everything down. So everything was documented, everything that we spoke about, everything we did. And I really wanted to try and not necessarily bring it and go through it, but it was, like I said, 10 years is a long time. So it was something that I wanted to do. So what I would like to do, if you was up for this, is maybe, a couple of months down the line and I can get hold of it, is maybe come on and have a refresh kind of thing.
Mate. Definitely.
Because I think some of those things in there would really help somebody else if they're going through those kind of processes. Like I said, 10 years was a long, long time ago. So remembering the whole process and everything that I went through was, it's still quite hard. Not hard as in emotionally, but it's just so much information, so much stuff. I remember a lot of it, but there's probably bits that I think would help other people.
So what I picked up on there, though, Tommy, is you've mentioned it's a 3-month process, but you've said you were in it for a year.
I was there for 12 months, yes.
What happened there then?
Once you finish the 3-month program, and again, this is how much I knew I was genuinely, lucky to get in there so quick. Whilst I was there during the 3 months, we had people coming in, people leaving, spaces being found, but then people coming in and saying, "Oh, well, I've waited 3 months. I've been waiting 3 months to get in."
And you got in 4 days.
And I got in 4 days, because that's how many people were struggling with the issues. And it just, that my timing, like I said, it was like it was meant to happen. It was meant to happen at that time. So once you finish the 3-month program, they have a halfway house. So it's like a residential place. So they had 4 houses, which is where the people in the program would stay. And then they've got literally just around the corner another 4 houses, which is what that's designed to do. Is once you've had the treatment and you've been through the rehabilitation program, you then learn to kind of reintegrate with society again. So you start to learn to budget your money, because again, you won't find, I'm pretty sure you won't find another gambling addict that is good with their money, because it comes with, the problem. So yeah, you kind of put in there to, again, a lot of people, lose their houses whilst there, because you're there for 3 months. If you ain't paying rent elsewhere, or you haven't got anywhere, or, so they give you then the opportunity to stay there, continue working. You still have, maybe not as much, because you'd have group and individual sessions every day whilst you're on the program. Over there, not so much. You'd have them, once or twice a week. So you're still kind of working on your recovery, still working on your addictions, but also going out more. I joined the gym. You can't do those things on the program because it is a residential program.
It makes all the sense in the world, is to try to get you back into reality with all those stimulus around
with
you.
Everything that you've just learned as well.
That you can then maybe, do you know what, if you are triggered by something, because maybe then fall back with that support network to go, look, this has happened today, and I feel a particular kind of way.
I'm quite grateful for the fact that they allowed me to do that, because it was there where I met my partner.
Okay.
Who I'm with from that day still now, 10 years we've been together.
So your partner had been through the process herself?
No, not in the program.
Right.
I'd met her coming out, so again, coming back into society.
Yep.
Started to look at dating again. Because I'm this new person, this different person. Found myself through the therapy, and I thought I'd love to maybe try and start something good. And by God, am I reaping the rewards of that? Because we've now got a beautiful girl. We've still got my son. She's got a daughter. we've got a family that we're both, and again, 10 years, a lot of things have happened over those 10 years and we're still together. And that's the difference for me. And I say this to her all the time and it drives her mad, but I used to be the person that would run 1,000,000 miles from anything, commitment or anything that becomes tough or strong. I'd be a coward. I haven't done that with this. We've worked through every single problem together, issue. I think that's a big thing in relationships nowadays. It's just so much easier to run away and find something new than it is to work on the actual things and your problems that you have.
I guess, mate, you've got a whole different perspective on that, though, Tommy, haven't you?
Well,
because what I mean by that is, with what you've been through and battling the addiction you've been through and having to go through therapy and recovery, that you now know that if you can beat that and conquer that and work on that, that it puts a different perspective on other life events, doesn't it?
100%,
where you think, well, actually, do you know what? I've been through that. This ain't that bad.
This is easy. Well, not easy. I don't want to use the term easy, but if I can get through that, then by God, I'm going to try my hardest to get through this. Yeah.
It's the oldest saying in the world, isn't it? What don't kill you
makes you stronger. Right?
But there's
something I say quite a lot now.
But there's truth to that. There is truth to that. I think probably to me, what I would say is a bit more accurate is it builds resilience. I think when you get knocked down and you keep getting back up, it just gives you some mental toughness, physical toughness, whatever, where you think exactly that. Like, I've been through whatever it might be. Yeah. I'm still here today. I'm still moving forwards. Yep. Life is always going to throw shit at you. And to a large extent, that's why sometimes people that don't go through adversity in life get absolutely floored when something happens.
Yes.
And they can't pick themselves back up because maybe, get into your maybe 30s or late 20s before anything really happens. You don't get that resilience, that, durability, I guess, that people who have been through things do.
Definitely, mate. I think resilience is the word, isn't it? It's not something that you've got to figure it out. You've got to find it. You've got to find resilience, and through hardship and through tough times, that's where you really find out that, you know what, actually I am way stronger than I thought I was.
Yeah.
I found that out, definitely. Because I thought, with the addictions and with how I was behaving and the weak behaviours, I was weak in my mind. But once I'd come out of and through the recovery process and through finding myself again, boy, I'm so strong now. Like, obviously, of course, we're always going to have problems, but my resilience, my mental strength and my mental resilience now is there isn't anything I can't get past in my head, because there's a solution to any problem.
Well, I think going through that process with Gordon Moody and the recovery and that what that did is it rebuilt a different version 100%, of you. Yeah. And the version of you that sits with me today has now got that whole tool set to cope with life a different way. Yeah. I've said this with other guests in the past that express that they've been through things such as yourself, and there's always that guilt and regret underlying it. But the way I sort of try and rationalise it, because I've been through things myself, mate, and I've acted certain ways in my past where I'm not proud of. Yeah. I'm really not proud of. But when I look back and I think at that point in my life, I only had the tools that I had then to deal with the situation, and I acted in a way appropriate to that,
to the best of what you could.
At that time, I was trying to. Everyone's trying to survive, mate.
Of course.
So I didn't have the tools to cope with things in a healthy manner. So I survived the way that I knew how.
Yes. Which I think a lot of people do the same thing, because it's the only thing they know.
And it manifests itself in certain behaviours that aren't necessarily positive.
No.
What you can then do is, after you've now built the tools, built the coping mechanisms, the new skill set to deal with life in a positive and healthy manner, you've got to try not to look back with that regret, because that version, the person that did all those things,
no longer here,
doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
So that's not you that did those things. It's that previous version
of myself along finding my way.
Exactly.
Life, this is something that I promote a lot as well, is that life experience is massive. and be observant along the way, because each thing's a stepping stone and a learning curve along the way. You're going to make mistakes. Everybody is going to make mistakes. This is something I tell my kids. Look, I'm never going to be angry or mad at you for making a mistake. I may be cross next time you don't learn from it. And that's the big part, is learning from it. I didn't do that for years and years and years, but this is where it will take you. It will take you to those dark places if you do not learn from your mistakes.
100%.
But one thing I did want to touch on as well was that during my time in rehabilitation, my granddad died, which was a big turning point for me as well.
I'm sorry to hear that, mate.
Because he was a big he was a big inspiration to me. I'd also done just like everybody else, same kind of. They all got the same treatment. He was one of them too. And in him passing whilst there, I just want to give another big shout out to Gordon Moody, because they allowed me to, even though you are not allowed to leave, they allowed me to leave for one day to go to his funeral. And it was in that time, in that moment, in that day, that I'd been to his funeral, got to say my goodbyes. Okay, I didn't get to say goodbye to him because I'd already gone down to the rehabilitation centre, so I couldn't go and see him like family could. But one thing I did get was the opportunity to go back, because I could have gone. That could have been anybody else, or anybody who genuinely doesn't want change would have saw that opportunity to, right, well, I'm not going back. Do you know what I mean? Like, forget my clothes and everything I've just took down there. I'm gone. Like, I want to feed my addiction some more, or I don't want. I wanted that so badly that I couldn't wait to get back down there and carry on with it and prove to him as well that this person that you've seen up to you not being here anymore isn't the person that I'm going to be anymore. So a lot of the decisions and the choices that I make nowadays, I said to myself from there, I'm going to make him proud now.
I'm sure he would be proud. Very.
And to be honest with you, mate, nobody needs to tell me different, because I'm not sitting here saying I'm perfect in any which way, because I'm not. But I know that the person I am today, he would be extremely proud of, mate. Extremely proud of. And that feels, again, so good, knowing, through the adversities and the issues and the problems that I've
part had. Of your reason why, mate. Part of your reason why.
Part of the reason why, mate. Definitely. And it was a big part of the recovery, because it made me want to do it even more. I already had the want and desire, because with addictions, again,
But you touched on there, though, Tommy. You can take that one or two ways. You can take that and drive like you did. Yep. Drive to achieve what you set out to achieve, or you can take that as an excuse to quit.
And the reason why, yeah.
One of the things, and I've said it, and it can come across a little bit harsh at times, but no matter what people go through in life, we a lot of us are victim to what happens to us. You can't control life. There's so many external factors you can't control. Like, you couldn't control that moment in your life. You have a choice. We all have a choice. We have a choice in how we react to those things. Definitely. And it's not to say that you should never be sad and you should never grieve and you should never get down like that. That's natural. It's human. But at some point you have to choose. You have to choose to move. You have to choose to not be victim to what has happened to you and around you. Definitely. And you have to choose your own path, because ultimately, if something bad happens to you and you become victim to it for the rest of your life and you let it define you,
it's going to hold you back.
Who does it affect?
Yourself.
Exactly.
And it will hold you back from achieving what every single person, I personally believe, and that's, we're all got the opportunity for greatness.
Yeah.
You've just got to find it within yourself. You have to find and deal with the issues and the battles that every single person on this planet has to deal with. We're all human. We all have mental health problems. This is part of why I really respect you for what you do, mate, because it's about breaking those stigmas. It's about raising the awareness that it's okay to not be okay. Because trust me, I've been not okay. And it's okay to be that way.
That mask, Tommy, is so damaging.
It really is.
I mean, listen, you've got two lads sat here now, both been in the construction industry for most of our lives. Both, you've gone through your things, I've gone through things. Yeah. You're a ground worker now, which is arguably one of the more sort of like alpha male industries within construction, which is an alpha male industry. But you're sat here now talking about the shit that you've been through openly without that mask on of like, it's all okay. And part of the issue in construction is the culture around it, that whole bravado, and because so many blokes out there, mate, that are suffering with a smile on their face.
100%. And I see it myself.
Yeah.
I see it myself every day at work. I see the people that I work with, like you're saying, it is what it is with the groundworks and that kind of side of construction. I think it's a big part of why, I mentioned to you networking with other people on TikTok, doing what I'm doing with my mental health, because my mental health Mondays lives that I do isn't, even though I'm coming from my own addiction and my own gambling problems, it isn't a gambling live. Does that make, or it's not an addiction live? It's a broad term of mental health.
Which is anything.
Which is everything and anything that can be involved with it. And anybody's welcome to come in and speak and talk about those things. But I am also networking with quite a few people who are solemnly in the mental health and construction thing because of, again, there is such a stigma and issue in the construction industry where I've seen it. I've been in sites. I've seen the stickers on the posters on all the walls. I mean, posters ain't gonna. Who have any of these lads got to talk to?
Yeah, exactly.
They haven't got anybody. They go home. They deal with the missus. They may be on drugs. They may be having drug addictions themselves. They may go straight to the pub and drink, and they're going to do all of these things. But who's actually there to support them with their mental health and talk to them and get them to recognise things, or even just put an arm around them and say, do you know what, mate, I can see you suffering. Are you okay? There isn't. They all want to talk about it being mental health in construction and how big of a problem is. But I personally, and a lot of people that I speak to, don't see anything changing with it.
I agree with you. In fact, not only do I agree with you, there's proof, because you look at the statistics, and I've seen it, and I've looked for it. You look at the graphs of the rates of suicide in construction, and the suicides per 1,000, per 100,000 heads in the industry, and you'll see it going like that.
Yep.
Which, for anyone listening, I'm moving.
So I mean, I've done a little bit of research into it myself, and I'm not sure how accurate it is, but I'm pretty sure it's around the idea of about 2 people a day.
Just over, yeah.
2 people a day who are in construction.
First of all,
take their own lives.
It's very hard to find accurate statistics, which is quite difficult. It shouldn't be.
No.
But the latest ONS statistics do say it's just over, I think it's like 2.1 or 2.2 people on average per day. So it's roughly 10 families in construction every week.
Have to deal with,
as you were talking before about, it's not just the person, it's the ripple, the butterfly.
Yep.
So that's 10 families every week. That's 10 people. That's however many
10 daughters not seeing their dad coming home.
Daughters, wives, husbands, mothers, fathers, friends, co-workers. Because you can't say it's like, if somebody you work with doesn't come to work Monday because they've taken their own life, that's going to affect you.
100%.
That's going to affect the people around you. It's a tragic statistic. It's a horrible statistic, but it's the truth. So we can't ignore it.
You can't hide from it. You can't ignore it.
But what you touched on, mate, is very, very accurate. There's unfortunately, particularly on big sites, there's a degree of tick box, well, what are we doing to prevent it? Well, we've put some posters up, so that's enough.
I think you'll like this as well, if I'm honest, Rob. Russ, am I right to plug in?
Absolutely, 100%.
So if you do, I've somebody who else has helped me massively and also pushing a similar thing on TikTok is somebody called, and if you go and search him, The Daily Site Grind. He put up a post that blew my head about this, and this is just something that can put it into a really good analogy. So us as machine drivers as well. So I've got my dumper tickets and different tickets or whatever. When we go there, we have a tool check. So we will go to our machines. You'll have to check its oil, check its water, check all of this checklist to make sure that this machine is capable to be driven. Why is there not a checklist for the person who's got to operate it? Because it cannot move without that person's operation. So it's the person in it. So where's the checklist for them? Who's checking on them? You know, and when he said that, he's like, yeah, you know, they drill into you so much that you've got to, like, if you're not signed this sheet by the end of the day, there could be a disciplinary for you. You could get in trouble if you don't tick all of these boxes and say, I've checked this and I've checked that, and you sign and you do your toolbox talks and you do all of these things about tools, and you know, you do abrasive wheels cards to make sure that you know safely operate still saws or all of this kind of stuff. But
what about the person?
What about the person who's actually operating all of this tools and machinery,
mate?
And
yeah,
he's had a lot of responses from that, and a lot of people. So again, if you are on TikTok and you get the opportunity, please go follow him, because he's doing amazing things when it comes to it. He's networking with people like Rob at the MYH podcast, other people like minded people who just want to see these statistics in construction change. That's all that they want. There's no financial gain in it for people.
No, mate, listen, I mean, you just said then, do you mind if I plug? I don't mind if you plug anyone, mate. The way I see this, the whole industry of construction and those out here, me, you, Rob, anybody that is trying to raise awareness is too few. Yes. You know, this is a team sport. Definitely. It's not. There's I'm not trying to gatekeep anything, mate. Yeah. Jesus Christ, I would be over the moon if 100 other podcasts like this sprung up. Yeah. You know, because the more people out there talking,
it's the goals are being.
It's just the message, mate. The message getting to more people to make a difference. And it sounds overly romantic, but I've said it a million times. If anything I talk about on any episode helps one person, it's been worthy. It's been worthwhile. And it has. I've had some incredible feedback and messages from people, but it still isn't enough.
It's not. I completely agree.
It's not. I mean,
completely agree.
When I set up this podcast, I wasn't aware of Rob and the MYH, and he started his before I started mine, and then I became aware of it through, you know, moving in the same circles. And Rob's been on my podcast. Yeah. Lee Anderson, another shout out. Lee's got his own podcast, similar things. Incredible blokes, both of them. Both work for Lighthouse. But I reached out to Rob early days, and I was like, mate, it looks like we're doing the same thing. I just want to say, you know, I'm not trying to tread on your toes. Massively support what you're doing, and we combine. Yeah. You know, it's nothing. None of this, as daft as it sounds. Yes, I'm the host of it, but this is nothing to do with me.
No, this isn't. And it's funny you say that, mate, because that's exactly how I feel when I'm doing my lives now. That I'm sort of starting. It's the exact same thing. Like, I just want to get it out there. You know, I just genuinely want to try and make a difference. Like I said, you've all just heard from my story and speaking with you, you know, I've spent so much time of my life feeling a certain way and being wrong, doing wrong, that this is an opportunity to do something right. I've been put it on a plate. This is all, again, happened since just reaching out to you.
Don't that just show though, mate, when you start moving in a positive direction? And listen, I've found it, mate. Over a year ago, I started this. Just over a year ago, I never thought I'd be sat in a high street premises like this, you know. And it'll be the same for you, Tommy. To be fair, once you start moving in that right direction now, and you put those vibes out there,
dude, I'm 6 weeks in. That's
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I couldn't completely.
The only limits that you can impose are your own. Yeah. You lift them, and truly, like, what you can do, there's no limit to it. And everything that you can do is going to potentially help other people, man. So, you know, it's
like I say, we all have the same common goal at the end of the day. So there is never going to be any kind of stepping on toes, or the goal is to help. Is to help people. Is to help people, even if it's not help. Understand the severities of the problems that are in. Let's stop being ignorant to it.
That's step one, though, isn't it?
It is.
In any kind of addiction, any kind of problem, the first step is always acknowledgement of it. Yep. Even if, you know, just that little moment where you go, "I'm not okay. Like, this ain't right. It shouldn't be this way." That's step one, because without that acknowledgement, you can't take action on something that you don't know exists.
You don't believe it's going to
exactly.
It's not there. Yeah. So just recognition and acknowledgement, 100%. Mate.
And unfortunately, the construction industry kind of doesn't help itself there.
No,
because how many sites? I used to do it myself. Be surrounded by people. The crowds I used to move in Monday morning. It was like war story time. What you get up to the weekend?
You won't believe the weekend.
I went out Friday, went home. I didn't get home until 8 o'clock yesterday. The missus has left me.
Yep.
Blah, blah, blah. I fell out with this person, fell out with that person, spent all my money, blah, blah, blah. And that was never greeted with horror.
No.
That's not like... Mate,
if anything, it's probably greeted with a laugh and a smile.
Pat on the back, yeah. Oh, you did this. Guess what I did?
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes competitive.
Yeah. You
got people trying to overdo their own shit with each other. Yeah. And then, like you say, it's applauded. It's like a war story. Yeah. But guess what happened?
Yeah. But what people don't see then is when those people are on their own.
Exactly that.
They're self-reflecting and thinking, oh, I wish I hadn't have done this. Or
sat in the empty house, mate.
It's empty.
Yeah. I've been there.
And it happens, and it's such a tough thing, isn't it, mate? It's such a tough thing. And I think quite a lot of it, I think the construction companies can do more, and maybe should be doing more.
Mate, listen, they're earning good money off the people, so they can definitely do more.
And let's be fair, without them, they ain't much.
No. It always, do you know what?
The machines won't drive themselves.
Tommy, I'm not going to go too far off subject on this, mate, because I could do a whole podcast.
Yeah, so could
I. I was sat watching some parliamentary thing. Some politician was on telly the other day, and they were talking about, we're going to build 1.5 million houses in the next 5 years, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And I looked at the bloke. I won't say exactly what I said because I was kind of judgmental, but I said to my missus, I said, look at that bloke. She went, what do you mean? I said, look at him saying, we're going to build this, I said, they ain't building anything. None of these people they're promising. The industry is severely affected with a mental health crisis, with the highest suicide rates of any industry in the UK. And they're talking about, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. Yeah. You are not we. You're not part of us.
Yeah. The politicians. You don't speak for us.
Nah. Those people promising, we're going to build, we're going to build, we're going to build. Mm-hmm. Who's going to build? Because if you don't look after this industry, there ain't going to be nobody to build.
There ain't going to be nothing there to build. Yeah. 100% agree, mate. I really do. And I think that's why I think the responsibility needs to fall on some of these construction companies a little bit more. I think they need not fall on them, but I think they could do so much more.
They should want to do more.
Should want to do more.
That's the thing.
I think whether that's like... maybe even offering counselling to the workers. I don't know whether I know some places do. So again, the Daily Site Ground on TikTok, he's worked for quite a lot of different companies. I'm not going to mention which ones or what, but out of the 9 I think he mentioned, only one of them actually had a welfare officer. One, where he was on site all times, and his only purpose was to be there for people who needed to speak to. He'd go walk around the site, check up on people, make sure that how they're feeling.
I mean, that's amazing.
The difference,
that's how it should be.
Personally seeing that would make on a construction site up and down this country would make a difference on those statistics.
Yeah,
that's just my personal opinion, and I think that if more companies followed suit and made sure that those things were possible, and like what Rob's doing, travelling up and down the country, speaking to people on building sites daily, again, mate, masses of them.
What Rob?
I think he spoke to 30,000 people or something.
What Rob and that team are doing is incredible.
He's incredible,
but I think
it's not enough.
When I spoke to Rob recently, I'm sure he told me that they're booked up already till next February or something.
Yeah, he said the same thing to me. Yeah.
But which is great, but at the same time not. Because that means that there's people that have got to wait until
to the better part of a year, 10 months or whatever it is. Yeah, that could be too late. And that's the reality. Could be too late.
Change needs to happen, mate. It really does.
And it needs to happen as quickly as it possibly can. But we also do, and this is something that I'm learning along the way so far, is we can only do so much individually.
You have, I mean, listen, we talked about that pre-record. You know, you're getting started on your journey into this space, and you do have to make sure you look after yourself. You know, it's that you can't pour from an empty cup, so you've got to take time now and again to fill that cup back up. Then you can go again.
Yes, definitely.
But you do have to look after yourself, mate. So do make sure you're doing that. I mean, before we do wrap up the episode, to anybody that has maybe listened or knows somebody, because it's not just those listening, it could be somebody listening and thinking that sounds like so-and-so. What would you say if somebody is listening and thinking, do you know what, actually, I might have a bit of an issue here around gambling?
Yeah.
What would you recommend they do as a first step?
First step, speak to somebody about it. Definitely speak to somebody about it. Maybe more so somebody who. So that's. I think that's a regret of mine, is that I kind of closed a lot of it up and I kept it all a lot to myself. There is help. There really is help out there. I'm sat here talking to you now because there is. It hasn't got to just be the Gordon Moody Association, even though they're doing amazing things. There are other people out there that are doing things to help. So yeah, I'd definitely say speak to somebody you care about, speak to somebody you feel that you can trust, and reach out for help. If you feel that you're in a position where you need help, then do what I do. I'm trying to set that example, mate. Google it, research it, look into it, and find or reach out and talk. And you will find that there are people out there who will help, or people who can point you in the right direction. By all means, again, my inbox is open to absolutely anybody. And if you are, all you've got to do is get in contact with me. Again, I'm sure you said you'll leave my information at the bottom, and I can point you in the right way, because there is people out there that really want to make a difference. And there's programs that will make a difference.
Same tone, mate. Generally, step one, talk. Let's talk. I mean, it says it on that sign behind the camera there, let's talk. Generally speaking, nothing bad will come of that. Like, you can't have a conversation with somebody when you're struggling. No. It can only do good things. So if there is anyone out there listening that has resonated what we've said today, please do reach out, seek support, whether that's a professional organisation. There's so many out there now. Jump on Google, or a trusted friend or family, just to get that conversation rolling, let people know that you're struggling.
Don't bottle it up. Don't bottle it up.
And not only that,
it's one of the worst things you can do.
As Tommy's a great example for here, it can get better.
It can. It 100% can. Trust me. Believe me, it can get better. I'm reaping one thing that I did want to touch on is the gifts of recovery and how important they are. Like, it changed my whole perspective of what's important to me in my life. I don't care if I have a big house and a nice car, and I couldn't give a monkeys, mate. I genuinely couldn't.
You can't say fuck, Tommy.
I know, I couldn't give a fuck.
You got to it because, and nearly went.
And I really couldn't, because you know what's most important to me is that my kids are looked after. They've got food in their belly. I walk through the door from working my arse off 10, 12 hours a day. And the minute I walk through that door, she sees me, and she's from anywhere in the house, or even hears me. And she's darting down them stairs, running up to me, giving me the biggest hug. How was your day? Those reactions are what is important, or to me in my life. Everything else, monetary value, as long as they've got what they need, as long as my things important to me, my family. These are the things that when you get to that point in your life on your deathbed, you ain't gonna look back at what car you had or how good a house. I mean, let's be fair, probably some people will. But it doesn't matter. Trust me, it's those things you'll look back and think, I wish I made more memories. So go make memories. Yeah. Go make memories. Go spend time with the people you care about. Love them, because that can't be replaced.
It's a great final note, mate. Yeah, it's perfect. And I completely agree. Completely agree with you. Tommy, massive thank you, man. Thank you hugely for your time. We've covered on a few occasions where people can find you, but I'll put all of Tommy's details in the description below. I'll also put a link to Gordon Moody as well.
Yes,
just for anyone that might want to pursue that. If you do need to reach out to Tom, he's said that he's open to any messages. And again, if anyone's listening and they think it sounds like a friend, a family member, whatever it might be, send them in the direction of the episode so they can have a listen, see if it resonates. Because sometimes what's important to point out with people that you think might be struggling, they can be resistant to that information initially, but rather than be hesitant of bringing it up, you can just plant a seed today that might grow. It might grow in a week, it might grow in a month, but just plant that seed, because at some point, and it was my own beginning of my mental health journey, acceptance that mental health existed started that way. I was resistant to it initially, but plant the seed and it can grow in the future. So don't be afraid to do that, and don't be disheartened if initially when you reach out to try and help somebody, they push back, because that's quite common. So
I think that's probably more common than people realise, that you weren't, just for hindsight, you think I think I probably definitely pushed back quite a lot. So by all means, definitely agree, mate. Just plant the seed and let it do its work.
Wicked. Thank you for listening. Before I do wrap up, a big thank you to our guest merchandise sponsors, the Funky Peach. If you need any workwear printed, anything like that for your business, go and check them out. They have provided me with a range of merchandise for my guests, such as Tommy. He'll be sending away with a hoodie and bits and pieces that they've sent. So massive thank you to you guys. Again, it's those kind of help and support from our sponsors that keeps us going and doing what we're doing. So big thank you to them. And I'll catch you soon on the next one.